Hello, it is Thursday, and in a few seconds it will be 4 p.m, which means it's time for the Etch Play Weekly Live Show. I'm your host, Adam Burt, and I'm joined for the news today by Dan Thomas. Hi, Dan.
Hello, how are we doing?
I'm good. It's Guy Fawkes. There's a lot of things going on. It's lockdown too. There's an American election. We're not going to get bogged down in too much of that, although we will talk about COVID-19 quite a lot later on. We're going to be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on game studios and how they operate, which is a really interesting, fascinating subject. But first things first, should we do some news?
Let's do it.
It feels like every week we have to go through some form of acceptance of game delays, and this is COVID-19 related. This week it's Ubisoft who are out there saying that both Far Cry 6 and the unfortunately named for 2020 Rainbow Six Quarantine are both supposed to be released in early 2021, and they've now been delayed. So we were expecting these in February and I think March respectively, and now they're likely to be later in 2021. They are supposed to be in the first half of the fiscal year, so you'd expect them in 2021 rather than slipping into 2022. But yeah, a major blow to Far Cry fans and Rainbow Six fans. Are you looking forward to either of these games, Dan?
Yes, although I would be lying if I said I'm an avid fan of their previous editions. I keep meaning to dive into the Far Cry world, and every time I think about it, a new one comes out, and I've got even more to try and get through.
You can just jump in at 6. You don't have to play all the others.
No, that's true. That's true.
You have to start from Far Cry 1.
Yeah, I did really like the premise of 5. Actually, I was quite interested in that. And yeah, Rainbow Six as well. Like the
Siege is huge. It's almost
Siege is one of those games I'm like, this looks really interesting. I'd love to give this a go, but I just kind of look at it and think I'm going to be so bad at it, and everybody's played it for so long now. But like Siege had a really interesting kind of launch, and perhaps another one of those games that maybe didn't get off to the best start, but really kind of turned it around and has become now a real staple of kind of the multiplayer gaming arena. So that's. Yeah, good, interesting game. Shame to see them delayed. We've said it before that the whole COVID situation has kind of really benefited those who had their games out, because we did get an influx of people staying at home and picking up gaming, and an increase of people, participating in gaming, which was great. But now we are really starting to see the impact of the logistical challenges, which we'll touch on a bit later.
Yeah. Rainbow Six Siege recently added to Game Pass, by the way, so if you wanted to get in, now's a good time. There'll be lots of other noobs in there make you feel better about your own performance.
Don't say that, because now I'll feel even worse.
We'll play together sometime, it's fine. Elsewhere then, some PlayStation 5 news. We're less than a week away from the start of next gen. I don't know how crazy that feels to you. It feels pretty crazy to me. PlayStation 5 obviously not coming until November the 19th in the UK, but we have heard some more from their camp this week on a couple of issues. Firstly, there was this website, I believe it's no longer live, you can't visit it, but I think they were called PlateStation.com, and they were doing third-party PlayStation 5 faceplates, and by that we mean the outer shell of the PlayStation 5. It's not strictly speaking a face like the Xbox 360 had. But this was so you could customize your PlayStation 5. You could have a nice matte black one, or I don't know. You could probably get a wood vinyl one, couldn't you? There's always, I don't know why people buy those, but people always want that for some reason.
Retro transparent, I'm sure that'll be on there at some point.
Ooh, yeah, I want retro transparent. I'd be up for that. So this website was live. It was taking orders, and it's been shut down because of threats reportedly from Sony's legal team. Basically, been asked to cease and desist. All the pre-orders have been cancelled. So if you did order an amazing shell for your PlayStation 5, you're going to get your money back, and you have to stick with the white one for now, I guess, until Sony releases officially licensed merchandise along those lines.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how this evolves. It's hard to think that they're going to keep this blockade up. They've already shown a video of them deconstructing the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And, they've moved towards a kind of a more PC-like build structure. It's going to be, people are going to want to mod them for sure.
Yeah, and it's you can't. Maybe they have. They tried to patent the shape or something. You can't stop people from selling plastic. That's all it is. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, if I remember correctly, you weren't a big fan of the PlayStation 4 Oh, PlayStation 5 design, I should say. The
Yeah,
white shell doesn't do it for you?
No, it's not my aesthetic cup of tea. And the idea that people could actually create other alternative housings is appealing, and I'm sure it will happen. And I totally get that maybe they just just back off a minute, let us have this moment,
Yeah.
and then we'll let everybody run riot shortly.
Let us get the black one out before you start doing all these crazy ones. Elsewhere, PlayStation 5 camp. So it came out this week, and this is a slightly complex story, so I'll do my best to explain it. PlayStation 4 obviously has PlayStation VR support. It's a virtual reality headset, and by all accounts, a very comfortable headset, like not the highest spec, but a nice bit of kit to use. If you have a PlayStation 5, your PlayStation VR will work on it with an adapter that you can apply for. However, they've said that when you're playing PlayStation VR games, you'll be playing the PlayStation 4 version. So this applies to games like No Man's Sky, or maybe in theory the next Hitman, games that have gone through a graphical upgrade for PlayStation 5. You won't get that upgrade when you're playing in VR mode. The VR mode is the PlayStation 4 version. Kind of pour some cold water on the idea of Sony supporting PlayStation VR early in this gen. Jim Ryan's also been given a interview. That's the PlayStation CEO, and I've got some direct quotes here. He said, "I think we're more than a few minutes from the future of VR. PlayStation believes in VR, and we definitely believe at some point in the future, VR will represent a meaningful component of interactive entertainment. Will it be this year? No. Will it be next year? No." So this is maybe bad news for VR aficionados in the PlayStation camp. Obviously, your VR headset will still work, but definitely sounds like it's maybe not Sony's priority in the short term for the next couple of years. You own a PlayStation VR, don't you, Dan?
I do, and I rate it a lot. I think it's really good. I'm not overly bothered by this news. It kind of makes sense. The headset itself is limited by its resolution and capabilities. And it's hard to think what. Often you're already playing a somewhat downgraded fidelity version, because obviously you've got a lot more of the world and things like that that's going on. So it's not hugely surprising, but it's not a great disappointment.
Do you think we get a PSVR 2 this generation, or do you think Sony backs off from it?
That's a really interesting question, because of all the VR headsets, I think the PSVR commercially did reasonably well as far as I'm aware. Some really great experiences from it. So I would think yes, but maybe they're also just kind of seeing how the rest of the VR market performs over the next. VR has been around for quite some time now, and maybe that people are still perhaps just waiting for that killer moment that really makes it mainstream.
Yeah, I think, like you say, PSVR is probably of all the headsets most overdue for a refresh if there was going to be one. And I mean, imagine if it was wireless like the Oculus Quest 2, could be really impressive.
Yeah, would be nice, but
sounds like we'll have to wait
be patient.
At least a couple of years for that, if it ever comes. Apple TV is coming to Xbox. That's the next news item. Probably wouldn't be much of a news item if it wasn't for the fact that Apple and Microsoft aren't always the best bedfellows. They're not always entirely on friendly terms. They've obviously got an ongoing spat about Game Pass on iOS, but they've found a way to make this work. So on November 10th, which is the launch date of the Series X and S, they'll be available on all Xbox consoles though. So your One S or your One X or your base Model 1 will also support this. So if you have Apple TV, if you are watching Apple TV content and you want to get it on an Xbox, you'll be able to as of next week. I don't have Apple TV. Do you have Apple TV, Dan?
No, I don't. And I'd be interested to see the stats on, like, if you remember when the Xbox One was first released, and it was very focused on the living room entertainment, and that didn't really work out for Microsoft.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to know how many people do watch movies, watch Netflix, and these sorts of things on their Xbox when it's fairly ubiquitously available on. I say ubiquitously. It's on a lot of TVs or
Yeah,
Chromecast or devices.
Definitely, there's cheaper ways to get Netflix or Apple TV onto maybe Apple TV actually, that's a bit more exclusive, isn't it, sometimes? But definitely you'd think it was less popular nowadays with the rise of smart TVs. It's hard to buy a TV that's not smart nowadays. But yeah, if you're an Apple TV fan, here's a new place for you to watch your Apple TV.
It is also interesting seeing Apple embracing that kind of Microsoft ideology about we just want our content, our services everywhere. So yeah.
Next up then, so we're trying to inject some positivity into the news segment always, but we've decided to make an official feature out of it. So here at Etch, we believe that games can be a force for good, and we always talk about that in our blogs and in our videos. So what we're going to do every week is try and highlight at least one news story which we think is as a positive spin from the world of games. So one of the things we want to talk about this week is Yuki's new campaign. This is the Get Set Go campaign. You might have seen us tweet about this, or Yuki themselves. So Yuki are the UK's trade body organisation for the games industry here in the UK. And they launch campaigns like this from time to time, and this one is all about helping parents to make sensible buying decisions, especially as we move into next gen and Christmas is coming up. So it's all about helping parents, especially to find family-friendly titles, to figure out how to set up their consoles with parental controls if necessary, or to coach younger children through how to play and how to play safely. And yeah, we think this is really positive. We're really happy that Yuki are out there making this work, and you can find out more at askaboutgames.co.uk/get-set-go, all hyphenated. I'll put a link to that in the chat actually as well, so people can find that if they want to. Dan, do you have any words to say about Get Set Go?
Yeah, I think it's, as always with Yuki and Ask About Games, a great initiative. The Get Set Go campaign is encouraging parents to not just kind of let children unwrap their new console on Christmas Day, but actually do the prep work, get it set up, get the parental controls configured, which obviously has the benefits and the merits of making sure that the appropriate content is presented. But I think it's also going a step towards making it more of a shared experience between family members, and as well as you mentioned, they've also got the family video game database, which is closely tied into this campaign, which is where you can find more family-friendly video games, and that's not just kids games, that is genuinely sort of family-friendly, so just encouraging families to play together, particularly relevant in these current times. So yeah, I think it's really good, great to see, and I'm sure it will be very helpful.
Just want to correct myself, I got the link wrong twice. I said it wrong out loud, then I posted the wrong one. It's askaboutgames.com/get-set-go hyphenated. It's the second link that I've posted in chat, so you can find that. Open that in a new tab and read it later when the show's over.
And it was going so well so far.
I know, I'm usually such a pro. How can I have let this happen on my watch? But yeah, go and read that after the show. It's really interesting, and you can engage with them on Twitter as well.
So it's good to see we've got Game Music Gaiden, our friend Paul, commenting on his use of Netflix on the Xbox in the lounge.
Yep. I mean, I've used Netflix on the Xbox as well, but I think it stopped for me at the point that I bought a Chromecast. That's when I was like, okay, I'm done with the Xbox as a media device now. But I guess not everyone has one of those. Last news story then, and this is more of a, primer for stuff that's coming down the pipeline next week, potentially. We're going to talk about this some more. Guildford is a hotspot here in the UK for game development, and there's lots of great developers and studios based there. And they're running a Guildford Games Festival. Obviously, you can't be there in person for most of these things, or I guess any of them. It's all kind of digital this year. But Dan, do you want to talk about Guildford Games Festival and what that's going to look like in 2020?
Yes, absolutely. So we helped organise the first ever Guildford Games Festival last year, and it was an in-person event. We had a load of the studios and the ecosystem surrounding the Guildford Games industry showing off things, and we had an industry day and a family day. So yeah, it's kind of like a conference-style day with talks and everybody sharing knowledge and networking, and then also a day which was kind of embracing games as potential career paths, and parents came along with their children, learned about what careers there are in games, and sort of trying to do the flag waving to say, you know, there's legitimate career opportunities here. Obviously, this year, as with all events, we can't do the in-person one, but it was so successful last year, and there's such a thriving community and industry around video games in Guildford that we wanted to make sure something carried on. So yeah, we've got the digital version. We've got a whole load of content, a load of video content that's being prepared, a whole load of work by a lot of people going into making this successful. There's going to be talks, careers talks, features from game studios, perhaps some announcements, and yeah, that's all 13th and the 14th of November. Guildford.games/festival. I'll drop a link in the chat.
Yeah, you do this one.
I've got this. And yeah, that's obviously next week, so everybody should check that out. Follow the GU Games Fest on Twitter. And
we'll probably talk more about that next week. Yeah, we'll do a little recap next week, probably, won't we, of some description.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, that brings us to the end of the news. Next up is a pre-recorded segment. So I sat down with marketing expert and Pokemon lover Emma Budd, friend of the show and friend of the team, and she basically laid out some great marketing tips for me. We got a bit carried away. We played loads of Pokemon. So we recorded this whole massive video, and I'm going to play you a snippet of this video, and then if you like the video, you can check out the rest on YouTube after the show. So I'm going to throw to this now. Here's Let's Go Pikachu. This is me and Emma having a go at that and talking about marketing, and we'll be back live here in the home studio in about 8 minutes' time. See you in a sec. Hello, this is Let's Go Pikachu, part of the Pokemon franchise. And because it's Pokemon, there's only one person I could call, not Ash Ketchum, it's Emma Budd. Hi, Emma.
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest Pokemon fan at Etch. Can I take that title, do you reckon?
You've not got much competition.
No, that's true.
So we're looking at footage of you playing here. This is, like I say, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, available on Nintendo Switch. You can also get Let's Go Eevee, which is a version of this where you start with Eevee. It's a remake of sorts of Pokemon Yellow, which you may remember from the Game Boy days. And that's your favourite, right? Pokemon Yellow?
Too much a like for like remake. They've changed a few things. But so I played Pokemon Red and Yellow a lot on the Game Boy as a teenager, so this is very nostalgic for me. That's what made me get it.
So we're getting your first look at your team here. You've got a Charmeleon, you've got Oddish, Pidgeotto, a Snorlax, which you shouldn't have at this point of the game, but I know you got it in a trade from me.
I did. I'm still quite early on in the game. I think it's fair to say here I've got 2 or 3 badges. So I think 2 actually at the point of recording this.
Yeah.
It's quite fun to watch this back. I think playing it as a kid, I didn't necessarily focus too much on the tactics of which Pokemon type would be good against the other, and I've kind of taken that into adulthood. I just kind of go with the flow. It's just a bit of fun.
Yeah, I find it fascinating how much you don't know the types. Like I'm not claiming to be perfect, but even I know that like water beats fire.
Yeah, I just have a genuine disregard for it and just go for it. I pick Pokemon on which ones I like rather than what types they are.
I mean, this game is great. It's mostly fairly easy, so you can kind of cheese it, I guess, in most battles. And obviously you can experiment and figure that stuff out. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing through this as well recently. We're looking at your game rather than mine because I've beaten most of the trainers and you've got more stuff to do, which is more fun.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're near the start of the game here. Obviously the start of most Pokemon games, not this one because you get Pikachu straight out the gate, but in most Pokemon games you pick a starter, like one of 3. So the classic one for Pokemon Red is Bulbasaur, Charmander and Squirtle. I want to talk to you about marketing because that's what you do as a job. You're like a marketing expert.
That's what I do.
So if you imagine marketing channels are kind of like your starter options, like website, paid media, content strategy, SEO, email. What is the best place to start with marketing for someone who's not done any marketing so far?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one we get a lot actually. So I work in the growth team at Etch, and we're not necessarily wedded to one channel. We kind of look at everything. So what we would actually do is sound like I'm a politician avoiding the question, but probably wouldn't start with a channel in particular. We would look at what it is you want to achieve, take everything into consideration, and then work out the best way of getting there. So it's not really a one-size-fits-all or an answer for everyone here. I think it's just about your circumstances as a company and a business, what you're trying to achieve, what your budgets are, your objectives, what's important to you, what kind of fits culturally, and then we'll take it from there. So we would never just say, oh, everyone should do PPC and pay search, for example. It's about trying different things for different clients. So yeah, that's
So the best starter is planning, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it is. It's about looking at everything and then, probably getting key stakeholders together and making sure you've got an understanding of everything before you're jumping right in and just trying a channel. I think a lot of the time people will try certain things, it won't work. They won't really understand why, and it's because they haven't put kind of the strategic thought behind it, and then they don't have a plan and they're just kind of running in. So it's it's different for every circumstance.
Yeah. So you're about to accidentally catch a Growlithe, it looks like, because you didn't mean to. It jumped into you when you were stood in the weeds.
Yeah, I love this about the gameplay, that you can see the Pokemon running around. So normally you would just walk through the grass and end up. Well, you'd have to battle them in the old version actually, but in this one, yeah, it just kind of jumped into me, but actually you can avoid them.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Pokemon Go mechanic that they've introduced. So you do still do fights. We just saw a fight, but when you encounter Pokemon in the wild, you just throw balls at them, Pokemon Go style.
It's probably worth noting that the capture card we used here had a bit of a delay as well, so it actually makes it really difficult to do things like catch Pokemon.
I'm really impressed that you caught the Growlithe, don't worry. We've seen a couple of great Pokemon there in that battle. We saw a bit of Snorlax, we just seen Growlithe. Do you have a favourite Pokemon? Who's your favourite? I'm guessing it's one of the original 151.
I mean, yeah, I don't even, comprehend the other ones as Pokemon. They're not about them. I can't say Pikachu because...
You can say Pikachu if you want to.
Isn't it? I think I love Lapras. That's a big favourite of mine. Others, Meowth I've got a soft spot for, but yeah.
That's interesting
Pikachu
that you like Meowth.
or Lapras.
I wouldn't have thought, you're not really a cat person.
Yeah, maybe Gardy. I know, I don't know why, I just love... There's no dog Pokemon though, is there?
There definitely are in the later ones. I mean, yeah, there's not many that are overt dogs in this one. Growlithe, they're more of like a tiger, isn't he?
Yeah.
Arcanine, I think, Arcanine and Growlithe act like dogs. They have a dog mentality.
Yeah, true. They all do a bit though, don't they, I think?
Yeah, they all love their masters. They're like, yeah, let me fight for you.
Yeah.
So, I got to ask as well, I mean, do you have a dream team of 6? I mean, do we need to cover the ears of your current team and talk about the Pokemon that you really want in your team?
Yeah, my current team's not quite there yet. Although I don't pay too much attention to types, I recognise you do need a flying type and something you can ride on and swim across water to get to the different islands. Lapras would definitely be that for me. Charizard, can you fly on Charizard?
Yeah, so actually this is really interesting, and this is one of the changes they've made to this game. You don't actually need to have them in your party to do that anymore, because what they've done, and you'll find this out later on when you're playing, Pikachu just learns everything in this. Like he can surf on a surfboard, and he has this weird, almost like hot air balloon thing for flying. So he can do everything. So you don't actually need anybody else.
Right. So I don't need that. Because he learned how to cut, whereas normally you'd need a grass type Pokemon to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, they've simplified that massively.
Final 6. Pikachu anyway. Mm-hmm. I want a Charizard, a Venusaur, because I'd always pick Bulbasaur as my original starting, so that's a quite important one to me. I quite like a Ditto.
Ooh,
for a Ditto.
okay.
A Lapras. and then probably a Snorlax, or if I'm getting later in the game, a Mew or a Mewtwo, ideally. But,
Nice.
I'll go Snorlax until that point.
Not one of the legendary birds? Zapdos, Articuno, Moltres, don't float your boat?
I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I guess because they came later in the game, I wasn't exposed to them as much. They haven't got the nostalgic feel for me. I don't know them as well.
This is the difference
Sticking with the
between...
classic. I'm such a basic Pokemon lineup.
This is the difference between me and you. Like, when I got Zapdos in this very game, I basically just, like, chucked Pikachu straight out of my team. I was like, don't need you anymore. Everyone else would be like, I love you, Pikachu. I've built this bond with you. And I was like, no, get rid of him. Zapdos is way cooler.
No loyalty. There's no loyalty there. That's horrible.
That was a clip of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu on the Nintendo Switch, and that whole video, including, it's like 3 times as long in real life, loads more Pokemon action, loads more marketing insight, is going to be available on YouTube. You actually can't see it right this second. Like, as I'm speaking, it's going to go live in like 5 minutes. So we'll send you there after the show to check out the rest of that video. In the meantime, though, you're back with me and Dan. Dan's here.
Hello.
Double duty. Double D. We're going to talk about COVID-19. Please stay with us, though. We promise it's not too depressing. We're talking about the impact of the pandemic on studios and on the kind of culture in studios. So we've done some talking around this before, and you might remember, if you're an avid Etch Play fan, which I'm sure everyone watching definitely is. We've done blogs in the past about the kind of toll that lockdown especially has had on game studios, game publishers. I'm going to put a link in the chat so you can check out that blog from the last time we spoke about this and post that in there now. So there's a variety of kind of unique, maybe not unique, but rare challenges around game development that maybe people don't always consider. You would think everyone in game dev just works on a computer. Why can they not do that from anywhere? Why is it not fine? But as Dan's going to explain, there are actually some pretty challenging differences between game development and traditional development or other kinds of computer-based work. Do you want to talk about that, Dan, now?
Yeah, sure. So, absolutely. We are going into lockdown part 2, and so game studios, like I said, you'd kind of think, well, games developers, they're going to be leading edge technical digital folks. They surely can just go and work from anywhere. But as we discussed when we first went into lockdown, some of the and as we mentioned earlier, kind of there are some production challenges. You consider this year's smash hit Red Dead Redemption 2, 120 gigabyte download, I think the console game is. Now, if you imagine you're working on a game like that, you will be doing builds of the game. You will have a army of testers that will need to test that game, and they're now all sat at home on their Sky broadband connections, whereas they were previously on their super fast local network, access to build machines, access to rendering farms. So there's been some serious logistical challenges for game studios to overcome, which I think is perhaps made more obvious by all the delays and things that we're seeing announced. But one specific challenge that we talk a lot about with our clients is that of, recruitment is always such a key objective for games companies. It's obviously a highly desirable industry to work in. It's obviously a high growth industry, and so there is always a big challenge around recruitment and trying to attract the best staff. And a way traditionally that a game studio would do that is to showcase their culture, and they really try and push the dream, as you might imagine. Like, this is a cool environment, this is our cool office, we've got games, we've got funky artwork, everybody's happy here. And so the culture push is all about the environment and the people within that environment. And you often as well, you'll get a lot of geographical pushing. So we're in this funky town centre location, there's restaurants and bars, and we all hang out together. This is a great environment to work in. So that's what you see the videos and the articles and photography pushing that agenda. And of course that's quite different now. And the studios that we work with, the kind of having to think, well, how do we attract the next hires, because the industry is still growing, it is thriving, even during these difficult times. So it's been interesting to revisit that and think, well, how can we communicate culture, because they are still amazing places to work, but it's having to shift the focus from perhaps the more obvious, I guess, kind of like viewpoints that you would get onto this studio life, and now we're perhaps having to think about, okay, well, what sort of impact can people have? What is the work that they're going to be doing looking like, and how do we collaborate? And what is the fun that we still have even in these environments? So yeah, it's a real interesting challenge, and there's different studios approaching this in different ways, and certainly not a ubiquitous solution that's been found yet. But, I think it's kind of a good thing to add some new constraints, because you do end up with perhaps a homogenized view of, oh, here's some people around the pool table, here's some people around the games console, here's some people walking by a bar, kind of thing. So actually, maybe this is a good opportunity to mix that up and ask some questions.
Yeah, and obviously when we talk about the impact of the pandemic, obviously we're in lockdown 2 now, which is going to take us to at least December 2nd. But it's probably worth mentioning for those who might not know at home, like, this is not a short-term thing for game studios. Like, there's not an expectation that everyone's going to rush back into a game studio office on December 3rd. In fact, most major tech companies, and anecdotally from what we've heard from studios, they're planning on, not opening the office again this year in some cases, or when they do, it's in a very limited way for people who really need it. And increasingly, this kind of, I guess, what you might call a hybrid approach to remote work, where there is an office available, but you're also very distributed almost by default most of the time, is increasingly becoming the norm. And like you say, there's a kind of an old guard way of doing recruitment, I guess, and a way of selling yourself, and the kind of, you mentioned the kind of classic pitches, the ping pong tables, the stuff that people see and, oh yeah, it looks fun, I'd love to work there, I could imagine myself on that sofa, use that kitchen. And now I think, you're kind of forced to reckon with, what is your studio culture really? Like, what is it when you're not in the same room? What are you left with? And what do you actually have in the groups of people that you have? Like, what are the mechanisms you have that still function in terms of this new, I don't want to say new normal, because I'd hate myself when I watch the show back, but the situation that we find ourselves in, all tech companies find themselves in. Are there any examples that you've seen of people that you think are getting this really right? Like, are there people you've seen you think, yeah, they're nailing it?
I did see the folks over at Endreams, who are based in Farnham. They do a lot of really good VR work, and I just saw some videos going around, and they'd done I think it was for charity, like a Taskmaster challenge.
Oh, nice.
And they put together a video. Everybody was kind of filmed themselves doing these challenges. It was like, who can throw a tea bag into a mug the most creatively, and things like that. And even though it was like a cut of people's phones filming themselves doing these weird things, you immediately got a real sense of fun. And it was a charity initiative, so there was a lot sort of communicated by their, it's kind of communicating their values by doing that, and actually the fact that people engaged with it as well tells you a lot. We've all been in an office environment where it's like, oh, let's do something fun and wacky, and it's kind of like people actually reluctantly or just don't engage in these kinds of things. So
enforced fun, everyone loves enforced fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I've enforced a lot of fun in my life.
I thought that was really nice to see, and what I'm also seeing is focus turning back to the work, as I mentioned, and ultimately, and I think this is particularly more, perhaps more will resonate more with more senior or the older guard, who, it's great to work in a cool environment and have access to the beer fridge and all these kinds of cliche things, but that is quite a thin veneer of your working life, and actually the main thing that you do is the output that you create. So focusing on the games that we make and the working practices that we do, the processes and the expertise that we have, and I think that can be really, really powerful, because as well, if you're looking to work somewhere, you want to work with experts, and if you're seeing somebody doing some crazy animation technique and you're thinking, God, yeah, that's really, really cool, I'd like to learn from this person, that's arguably maybe even more powerful than just a nice environment.
Yeah, and I think it's a real opportunity for change, and even before the pandemic, there was definitely a growing, I guess, consensus among a lot of people that the way that game studios were advertising their culture wasn't always entirely, not that it wasn't entirely accurate, but that it wasn't entirely enticing to all different kinds of people from a diversity perspective. And that's not just about people of colour and ages and all those sorts of things, but even just like people who don't drink. Like the idea of your culture page being just like, here's all of us absolutely hammered on beer. It's like, is that what your studio is? And is that what people want? Is that to an exclusive a club, or is that maybe not the way to go about things?
Definitely, it's an opportunity to revisit the inclusivity of how we work and what we do, and we can, and you've also got the opportunity, and I'm seeing you're kind of seeing two camps really. Some people are realizing, the value is in our connectedness, our togetherness, our what we share geographically. That we are a town centre, this place focused studio, and that is what we are and who we are. And then you're seeing others who are opening up to the fact that we aren't constrained by physical location, and now we're seeing job opportunities opening up to the global stage, and you can be more inclusive, and different people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different classes, and I think that's really interesting. It's kind of been a forced learning to the recruitment processes, and there's lots of advantages for that.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an interesting time. One thing you can say about 2020 is that it's not boring. There's a lot going on.
It is a lot.
And your best place to keep on top of what's going on, at least in the world of games, is always the Etch Play Weekly live show. So remember, if you're watching on Twitch right now, hit the follow button. If you're watching us back on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and hit the little notification bell so you get told when we go live. That's the end of today's show. Emma's video, loads more Pokemon action, loads more great marketing tips, is premiering live on YouTube right now. Because I'm a pro, I've timed it so that if you go and watch that right now, you'll be picking up where you've left off from this show. So head over to YouTube. I'm going to put a link in the chat. I'll see you over there, and we'll go and watch some more Pokemon with Emma. I'm Alan Burt, and he's been Dan Thomas. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.